Today, we're diving into a really fascinating idea. Think of it as a diagnosis for what might be wrong with our modern world, and maybe, just maybe, a path to healing. And it all revolves around this powerful concept called the world's soul.
But first, let me just ask you something. Have you ever looked around at our crazy, fast-paced world and just felt like something's missing, you know? Like something fundamental, a real sense of connection, maybe, even a soul?
Well, according to the analysis we're looking at today, that feeling isn't just you being nostalgic. No, it's a symptom of a real, genuine crisis of spirit. The argument is that our entire culture is, in a way, suffering from a very specific kind of sickness. And that sickness has a name: one-sided materialism. So what is that? It's basically a worldview that's obsessed with the things we can measure, build, and produce. It puts all the value on the physical stuff, while everything else, the symbolic, the intuitive, the spiritual, gets pushed to the side, treated like it's not as real or important.
And the fallout from this way of thinking? It's huge. I mean, when you reduce everything to just matter and mechanics, the world kind of loses its magic, doesn't it? It loses what's called its numinous quality, that feeling of awe, of mystery. And what we're left with is this deep, nagging sense of alienation, feeling cut off from nature, from each other, and yeah, even from ourselves.
Okay, so if one-sided materialism is the symptom, what's the actual disease? What's the root cause of all this? Well, this analysis points to something really ancient, something deeply wired into our psychology that we've just completely lost touch with.
And this is really the core of the argument. The idea is that our cultural sickness comes from systematically ignoring what's called the archetypal feminine. Now, it's super important to understand, this isn't man versus women, not at all. It's about a principle, a way of being that values things like connection, intuition, mystery, the sacredness of life itself. And by pushing that aside, we've basically cut the cord to the world's soul.
And you can really see the clash in these two worldviews. On one hand, you've got the materialist view: nature is just a machine, right? A pile of resources for us to exploit. But on the other hand, you have the world's soul view, which sees nature as a living, breathing being, a single entity with its own spirit. And let's be honest, our world today is built almost entirely on that first idea.
So what's the cure? The prescription, so to speak, is what's called a return of the Earth Mother. Again, this isn't about a literal goddess, but a deep psychological need. It's about bringing back those values we've pushed down, things like nurturing, renewal, and seeing how everything is connected. It's about a course correction, a way to restore some much-needed balance.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we start this healing process? Well, believe it or not, the analysis points us to an ancient Greek myth, suggesting it holds a kind of roadmap for us.
Yeah, the myth of Demeter and her daughter Persephone. Now, you might remember it as the story that explains the seasons, but it's so much more than that. It's this powerful story about separation, about deep loss, and crucially, about the eventual return of life. It's almost a perfect metaphor for the crisis we're facing today. So the story kicks off when Persephone is dragged down into the underworld. And this isn't just some family drama. Symbolically, it represents a massive break in the natural order of things. A severing of that sacred thread of life that's supposed to pass from one generation to the next. And her mother, Demeter, the Earth Mother, is so consumed by grief that she just lets the whole world go barren. Nothing grows. Everything becomes cold, empty, lifeless. I mean, doesn't that sound familiar? This mythical, endless winter is a perfect mirror for that materialist malaise we were just talking about, a world that feels dead because its soul has been ripped away. But the story doesn't end there. Eventually, a deal is struck, and Persephone gets to return to her mother for part of the year. And when she does, life just floods back into the world. It's not a permanent happy ending, though, and that's the point. It's the restoration of a cycle, that eternal rhythm of life, death, and rebirth. So the big takeaway from the myth is what it reveals about the mystery of birth. It teaches us to see life not as some random biological accident, but as a sacred, cyclical process. And by forgetting stories like this, well, we've kind of forgotten how to see the sacred in anything at all. Okay, so the myth gives us the big picture, the framework for understanding this. But what about actual tools? Are there practical things we can use to start reconnecting, to start healing? The source we're drawing from points to one really powerful universal symbol. And that symbol is the mandala. You've probably seen them, those intricate circular designs. They're ancient symbols of wholeness, representing the complete self. And think about it. In our modern, fragmented world where our attention is pulled in 1,000 different directions, a mandala is like an anchor. It's a powerful tool to help us center ourselves, to, as the source says, remember our soul. But you might be thinking, okay, that's an ancient symbol. Does something like that, an archetype for wholeness, still just pop up in our modern, disenchanted world?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. The analysis suggests we look at crop circles. Now, setting aside the whole debate about how they're made, just look at them symbolically. They are, in essence, modern mandalas. And where do they appear? Directly on the fields, on the very body of the Earth Mother. It's as if the collective unconscious is literally drawing symbols of wholeness, crying out for us to pay attention.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. We've got the diagnosis, one-sided materialism. We have the root cause, the lost feminine principle. We have a mythical map in the story of Demeter, and a symbolic tool in the mandala. So how does all of this add up to a path forward? A way to build a more soulful world?
Ultimately, it all comes back to that central idea, the world's soul, or anima mundi. This is the belief that the world isn't just a dead rock floating in space. It's a living, breathing being. And to deny that, well, that's not just some philosophical error. It's a profound spiritual mistake. Because when we deny the soul of the world, we're really just denying a crucial part of ourselves.
So this path to reconnection can be broken down into 4 pretty clear steps. Step 1, acknowledge the sickness. We have to admit that our obsession with materialism has left us spiritually bankrupt. Step 2, honor the mother. That means bringing back those values of nurturing and understanding life's cycles. Step 3, engage with mystery. Dive into stories like Demeter's, things that can't be easily explained away. And finally, step 4, center the self. Use those tools, like the mandala, to find your own wholeness again.
And this last analogy, I think, just ties it all together perfectly. Imagine the world as a garden. The materialist treats that garden like a factory, just trying to squeeze out maximum yield, pumping it full of chemicals, not caring about the soil. But the soulful approach, that sees the garden as a living system. It respects the cycles, it nurtures the hidden life in the soil, and it understands a fundamental truth. You can't separate the health of the gardener from the health of the garden.
And that leaves us with one last, really big question to think about. If our world is a garden, and we are its keepers, how have we been tending it? Really, how have we been doing? And maybe the more important question is, what are we going to do differently, starting tomorrow?